So I'm going to give it one more minute to 7:03 and a half, and then we'll start the meeting.
I'm definitely having Zoom dinner this evening.
Comprised of what?
I know it's the perfect weather for this chicken noodle soup.
What?
And well, I made it yesterday. We found that if we don't utilize our weekend time, we end up eating trash during the week because we're exhausted after putting a baby down, and we're just trying to get ahead of the meal process. So chicken noodle soup was supposed to be later in the week when it cools down, but tonight.
Food processor and a slow cooker and a deep freezer. Those three things, you're set
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah, actually, that's good. Yeah. It's a good triumvirate.
Okay, we've reached 7:03 3/4, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:03. All who are able to, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence or silent prayer as your conscience finds appropriate. Thank you. Please be seated.
I just think everybody should know that's my second pledge today. So I'm just, it's who I am.
Very good. Okay, next item on the agenda is, of course, the approval of agenda. Members of the council, are any amendments required? And are there any conflicts of interest that you have for any agenda items that you need to let us know about?
I have no changes nor any conflicts.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay. I'll note the Councilmember Mayers has arrived. So we now have a four council members and one council member elect. Okay, hearing no amendments required. May I please well, first of all, are there any public comments on the agenda as presented? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia does not appear to be present. Is Councilmember Mejia here?
Don't believe so, sir.
Okay, this is the second meeting in a row that she has not been at. Is that correct?
Ms. Barnes?
I believe that's correct. I'm going to send her a quick message to see if she's trying to join.
Okay, thank you. Moving on with the vote, Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion, I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Let's move on to a very exciting part of this evening, the presentation of the official results of the Ward 1 special election held on September 11th, 2021. Chief Election Judge Sarah Zolad.
I'd like
Judge
to start
Zola.
with that. We had a fabulous day on Saturday. The weather was fantastic and the firehouse was a very good place and worked very well. We had 190 people vote. there were 49 absentee ballots returned. We had 2 people who were same-day registrations that are residents of Riverdale Park that are not allowed to vote in the state or federal election. So that was great. And we had another person who was under 16. So that was great. I love to see that happen. And there were no problems that day. And got the results at 8. And I have to pull up my notes on the other page just a second, because the exact numbers are not in my head right now, which they should be.
110.
Yes, there we go. 110 to 78. Thank you. And so Richard Smith had 110 votes, and I'm not going to pronounce his name right. Jessica, can you pronounce it for me?
Ifyak Inyang.
Ifyak Inyang had 78 votes. There were 2 write-ins, and I was pleased that they were actual real people. Richard Paris and Jack Jones. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Council members, are there any questions for Chief Judge Sarah Zolad?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Chief Elections Judge Zolad, I was wondering if you could clarify that one point you made regarding the registration, that same-day registration of
Mhm.
folks who would not be able to vote otherwise. You said a person came and registered, you said was under the age of 16 or were the age of 16?
They were 17. If I said under the age of 16, I meant under the age of 18. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody's paying attention.
Any additional council
Yeah.
questions? Any public questions for Chief Judge Zolad?
Oh,
Yes?
can I say 2 things? One, congratulations to Mr. Smith. And 2, don't forget to take your signs down.
Yeah, I've been picking them up as I kind of drive through intersections, but I'm going to make a concerted effort this week to get them all down.
Yep. Thank you.
No
Very
problem.
good. Okay, hearing no more questions, may I have a motion to certify the Ward 1 special election results as
So
presented
moved.
by? Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there any additional discussion about the motion to certify the Ward 1 special election results as presented by Chief Judge Sarah Zolad? Are there any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh, please go ahead, Mr. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you. Only as a comment, being that this is on the record, I just wanted to extend my thanks to Chief Elections Judge Zolad for committing to do this and seeing it through. It's appreciated greatly by all.
I will accept that on behalf of me and Kate and Sheila and Brenda, all of us who were there. We did a great job. Everybody did. And of course, Jessica is phenomenal. She makes it easy to do our job.
That's where I was going next, but thank you for covering it. So,
Well, we'll keep each other in line, right?
right. Thank you, though.
Okay, any additional comments or questions from council or members of the public?
Mayor?
Please.
Just similarly want to express my thanks to everybody who was involved in putting on a really great election at a new location, and that I'm looking forward to working with all of you to doing some great things for Riverdale Park. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I was going to hold this for my report, but I'll go ahead and jump in since other people are speaking here and give thanks to both candidates. The election went very well. The candidates reached out to the to members of the public, campaigned hard, and that's what's good. It's good to have a competitive race and have some different perspectives that are available to voters. So thanks to both candidates, thanks to the judges of election for their long day and hard work. Thanks to town staff. I think that Jessica Barnes was, Director Barnes was in charge, and I'm sure that other staff contributed also to the effort. And thanks to all the voters who turned out. I have to say 190 votes for a special election is a very good turnout, and it's good to see that level of activism in Ward 1. So thanks to everyone who was involved in any way with this election. Okay, any additional comments before we move to a vote? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. The Ward 1 seat is of course empty. The Ward 2, Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Ward 3, Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Ward 4, Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Ward 5 has Councilmember Mejia joined us or not yet? Okay, not present. Ward 6, Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain, as I am required to do by the rules of order, and so the motion passes 4-0-1. We now have a mandatory 10-ish days for a possible challenge to the election results, and then a delay after that. We'll have a swearing in at the work session. We'll have a special legislative have a swearing in at the work session in later this month. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, proclamation in recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month. And since this is a proclamation in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm going to start this month in Spanish. Proclamación. Considerando que la celebración de la Semana de Herencia Hispana comenzó bajo la presidencia de Lyndon Johnson en 1968 y fue ampliada por el presidente Ronald Reagan en 1988 para cubrir un periodo de 30 días que comienza el 15 de septiembre y termina el 15 de octubre. Y considerando que el mes nacional de la herencia hispana es una oportunidad para celebrar las ricas tradiciones culturales y honrar los logros importantes de nuestras comunidades hispanas y latinoamericanas, y considerando que los hispanos han participado a lo largo de la historia de los Estados Unidos y el apoyo y defensa de los principios y ideales sobre lo que se fundó este país, y considerando que los hispanos han hecho contribuciones significativas en todas las fases de nuestra vida económica, social, cultural y política, y por cuanto nuestra comunidad ha encontrado fuerza en la diversidad de nuestra gente, con fe y pasión, una sólida ética de trabajo y una profunda devoción por la familia, la comunidad hispana ha ayudado a llevar adelante nuestro legado como un símbolo vibrante de oportunidad para todos. Y por cuanto nosotros, como comunidad y como gobierno, estamos orgullosos de enriquecimiento cultural traído por la diversidad de la población hispana. Ahora, por lo tanto, yo, Alan Thompson, alcalde del Ayuntamiento de Riverdale Park, por la presente proclamó el periodo del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre de 2021 como el mes de la herencia hispana. Hago un llamado a todos los funcionarios públicos, educadores, bibliotecarios y todos los estudiantes para que celebren este mes con ceremonias, actividades y programas apropiadas. And now in English, proclamation, whereas the observation of Hispanic Heritage Week began under President Lyndon Johnson in 1968 and was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15th and ending on October 15th. And whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and honor the significant achievements of our Hispanic and Latino American communities, And whereas Hispanics have participated throughout the history of the United States in support and defense of the principles and ideals upon which this country was founded. And whereas Hispanics have made significant contributions in all phases of our economic, social, cultural, and political life. And whereas our community has found strength in the diversity of our people, with faith and passion, a strong work ethic, and a deep devotion to the family, the Hispanic community has helped to carry forward our legacy as a vibrant symbol of opportunity for all. And whereas we, as a community and as a government, are proud of the cultural enrichment brought by the diversity of the Hispanic population, now therefore I, Alan Thompson, Mayor of the Town Council of Riverdale Park, hereby proclaim the period from September 15 to October 15, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month. I call on all public officials, educators, librarians, and all Americans to celebrate this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs. Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. And I'm going to invert the order of some of the topics I've been doing over many months. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to the fall. It's not exactly astronomical fall yet, but it is meteorological fall. We're in September. We had at least a few days of cool weather. Hopefully we'll have some cool weather back soon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the season and hope that you all had a good summer. And I hope that the tasty tomatoes are going to last a little while longer at the farmer's market. I was going to, as I said earlier, I was going to discuss the election here, so I'll just skip ahead and discuss the recently passed same day, 20th anniversary of September 11th. September 11th, I think all of us who were, certainly who were adults on September 11th, 2001, remember where we were, remember the confusion, remember the chaos of that day, the information and how things we thought were happening weren't happening and weren't happening were happening, and how the information trickled in. And it's even from 20 years, it's still very much too sharp. And the thing that I remember most after September 11th was just how we as a country came together and focused on how to recover and how to respond to that events of that horrific day. And so I hope that that everyone observed this solemn anniversary and thought of those who have lost loved ones, both the day of the event and in the following many years of war, and keep all of them in their memories and keep the memory of the day itself alive. The day before, we had a town anniversary, a 1-year anniversary of the September 10th flood. And the night before that, the evening of September 9th, we had a presentation from County Councilmember Danielle Glaros on the current response from the county on one piece of that, which was the 9 Pond project that is slated to begin construction very soon. Later this month, we will have county staff in to present other responses to the flood, other projects that are moving forward. For those of you who don't know, building infrastructure like this is very expensive. It is very time consuming, and it just takes a long time to sort of move the needle on it, to move the ship around. And I'm honestly quite pleased that the 9 Pond project, which we on the town council have been working on for well over a decade, is moving to construction phase. And I'm hopeful that many of the projects, many projects that were discussed at the work session 2 weeks ago will move faster than that, and we will have them in place in time to respond to future storms before they happen. The last thing, which is usually my first topic, is the current status and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Current status, things are bad. We have a pretty high infection rate. It's a little bit down from where it was several days ago. We're still sort of near the top of a peak, but we may be going down. The vaccination rate, both in the county and in our zip code, is creeping up, but not as fast as would be nice. And I'm just going to mention here, I tweeted this out today. This is a reminder that every variant, the Delta variant, Alpha variant, every Greek letter you can imagine, all of them have proven susceptible to the vaccines. The vaccine may not be quite as effective on some of them, but it is still effective. It is still a useful thing to do. And looking forward, I'm honestly more than a little bit concerned about the fact that just last week, the county schools went back into session. It's well known that children are less impacted by the COVID virus, COVID-19 disease than adults are, but they are perfectly good at carrying the virus out, at being avenues by which the virus can infect their households, their parents, their grandparents. And I'm concerned that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we may see that pathway move forward. And I am hopeful that schools are running their in-session classes as safely as possible, and that we will not see that, but I'm concerned. And my last statement this evening is about a personal loss that I've had as a result of recently had as a result of this. I've actually lost a neighbor who lived a few blocks away in the spring. I lost a friend who died in late April. He was just a few years older than I am and in very good shape, much better physical shape than I am, no question of that. And my most recent loss was a little bit over a week and a half ago. My mother-in-law, who was in a so-called congregate facility, in a memory care facility, even though she was vaccinated, she was infected by someone who got through the careful layers of defense that they had. And she was asymptomatic for about a week. And we had some hope that because she was vaccinated, that she might make it through. She developed symptoms about a week into it, maybe 8 days, and she passed away about 3 days later. And this is a tremendous loss for our family. It's a tremendous loss for their extended family. And I just want to use it to remind everyone that your vaccination status affects not just you, but also other people you may not even know. Please get vaccinated. Please observe all public health guidelines that you possibly can. This is real. My wife will tell you that being as close as she could be to her mother as she died was terrible. This is a terrible disease. We have the tools to combat it. Please, let's move forward. That concludes my report for this evening. Next item on the agenda is the town manager's report.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the community, and the staff team. Mr. Mayor, thank you for sharing that deeply personal message. And I can't say anything else about COVID. I hope that message resonates with all of our residents and anyone who may be watching this. This evening, Ms. Ivy Lewis is not with us at the meeting. She is monitoring the countywide map amendment public hearing this evening. So she's watching that streaming live. And we have until the 29th to submit any comments. I have reached out to county staff to renew the conversations that we had with county staff back in December of 2019 on this topic. And we may have to send a letter if they hadn't made changes based upon the council's input in 2019. So I hope to learn that in the next few days. And if they did not adopt or include the changes that we requested at that time, then I'll be memorializing those thoughts in writing to the county staff before the 29th. Paul Smith is also not with us at the meeting this evening. He's on leave, but we have Gentry Jones, the town CPA, is here with us. The 48th Avenue project is moving forward, and we will bring that to you all at the work session at the end of the month. We will be looking for a contract to be awarded at the October legislative meeting, which is just 3 weeks away, I believe. And that way we can hopefully have that project completed yet this calendar year. I mentioned before that we were transitioning the farmers market dollar program to a paperless system, and that implementation has been working well. And one of the benefits is we can see what participants are using the cards and which ones are not, and for how much. Before, we weren't able to track things down to that level. But this electronic format is really helping us to better manage the program. And I think it's good to point out that at least it's my understanding that in Maryland, the food stamp program, the SNAP program, is going back to the regulations that were in place prior to the pandemic as of October 1. And so individuals who had been receiving maximum amounts will now go through a series of tests, and you'll have a considerable population that sees their food stamp allotments reduced under the reinstituted regulations. Last thing I have is that Ms. Barnes and I are working on a format change for our packet material. It may not be in time for the 27th, but if we don't meet that date, it will be in time for October 4th. And the format change will have a series of drop-down boxes and that for staff to complete, but it's going to include an area for racial and ethnic impact, sustainability, financial impact, and alignment with the vision and commitment statements that the mayor and council have adopted. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Will Mr. Jones be presenting the finance
Yes.
report? Okay, well, let me see if there are any questions on your report before we move on to that. Are there any questions for Mr. Lestitian? Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for noticing that raised hand. I do appreciate it. My one question / request of the town manager is that while more information will be coming on the 48th Avenue project at the next work session, could I ask of him that also provided would be an update on the Longfellow Stormwater Project, the new storm drain alignment that is in the process with the county?
Yes, and we're working on an overall CIP update, sir, and we may have that ready by the 27th to come in and give you an update on our various projects.
Okay.
At least that's our goal at this point. If we don't have the overall presentation done, we'll at least have Longfellow for you by then.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional council or public questions for the town manager? Hearing none, let's move on to the monthly finance report. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight's finance report is similar to, well, in the same format as previous finance reports. It covers the last month and the month preceding it, so July and August for the current fiscal year, as well as the two two prior fiscal years that preceded. So for July, in the current fiscal year, the town's revenue was $348,047. Expenditures for July were $457,229, leaving the town with a deficit of $109,182 for the month of July. In comparison to the previous fiscal years, revenue is up a bit at the 348 figure in comparison to 253 and 289,000 the 2 years before prior. Expenditures for July came in at 457,229, which is a bit lower than the previous fiscal years as well. So revenues are fairly strong for July, and we are continuing to be conservative with our spending as expenditures are a bit lower than previous fiscal years. For August, the current fiscal year revenue, the town brought in $382,258. Expenditures totaled $480,742 with a deficit of $98,484. Similar to the month of July, the revenues are a bit higher than they've been in previous years, and the expenditures are lower than they've been in the previous years, as we are again still remaining conservative with our spending. So for a year-to-date total, town revenue $730,305, expenditures $937,971, with a deficit of $207,666. So overall, town revenues are strong at this point. We do like where we are as far as a revenue standpoint, and we've also been conservative with our expenditures, as you know, we have not yet cracked $1 million for expenditures, leaving us with a total deficit of $207,000 in comparison to previous fiscal years. That deficit number has been higher. So yes, that concludes tonight's finance reports, and I will take it up for any questions at this point.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question of Mr. Jones first, a preliminary
Please.
matter?
Please.
Gentry, can you cover when we actually receive our bulk of revenue? And because the majority of our revenue will be arriving in a matter of weeks. And can you also touch on cash management and where we are from a cash management position?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. So typically, the town receives a large portion of its revenue in September, in October, in the fall. As far as cash management, there have been, in previous fiscal years, there have been times where we've had to have been much more conservative in the beginning of the fiscal year because we, from a cash management standpoint, although we knew we were going to receive that money, we had not yet received it. But the way that the revenues have worked, and with the town being conservative with spending, the cash management hasn't been an issue this year. But again, as John mentioned, we do receive the majority of our real estate, our tax revenue in the upcoming months.
So thank you, Mr. Jones, for answering that question. I was going to make a similar comment and basically say that the deficit numbers are nothing to be worried about, that we're receiving a large infusion of cash from the county for the property tax revenue shortly. Are there comments or questions from members of the council at this time?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
I just wanted to thank the town manager for bringing up that request for that explanation. I think when a lot of folks see that and they see a lot of parentheses around substantially large numbers, that there's not really a need for a concern based on what we still have in the bank as an overall balance. Perhaps in future reports, some kind of explanation there within in print might be helpful, just from a resource and a research point of view.
We will definitely add that, sir.
Great, thank you.
Okay, are there additional council questions or comments on this report? Are there public comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, do you wish to make a motion to adopt the finance report subject to audit?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. I would like to make a motion to adopt the finance report subject to audit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Siddiq. Is there any council discussion of the motion? Are there any public comments? I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mehi, I believe, is still absent. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is the correspondence summary. These are letters received by the town addressed to myself or the town as an entity. All members of the council have this in their packet. Mr. Town Manager or Director Barnes, are these correspondence summaries made available on the town's website for members of the public? Yes.
Yes, the entire packet is available there, sir.
Very
And
good.
so all the letters are attached.
Very good. So unless there are any motions from the council coming out of review of this correspondence, we can move on. So we'll pause for just a moment. Or any questions from the public? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I was just wondering if staff could touch on item 1, the letter being from WSSC, being that that WSSC is looking to resume service shutoffs.
Yes, and so I can touch on it, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Barnes and Ryan Shelton to jump in. So WSSC has reached out to us and provided us with detail on the number of shutoffs they have in town. And I think that really helps us. And actually, as we develop programs to assist residents, so it's something that we hope that type of communication continues. And I know staff are taking that into account as we look to new programs to help residents. And I will point out that, and I believe it's in the same letter, it lists that there are 3 government accounts that are past due. They are not ours.
Okay.
I did reach out to WSSC and I said, I know we're current on all of our bills, but can you tell me who? And they said, we can just tell you it's not you. And
Okay.
so when folks see that, it's not the town of Riverdale Park, but there are
Okay.
3 government accounts that are past due.
Okay.
Does that help, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the other item I would ask of staff for some more background on is item number 3 from the Maryland General Assembly regarding non-compliance with audit guidelines.
Yes, and on that one, sir, I'm going to ask Mr. Jones, who has discussed this matter with the town's auditor.
Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Sure, yes, thank you, John. So Basically, we received a letter from the state Maryland's legislative auditor, and there were two items that that are being requested to be updated. First being, they would like for the independent auditors to express an opinion on our non-major funds, which consists of the town's economic development fund and the health and wellness fund. These were two funds that were established by the mayor and council to better track expenditures and to establish a fund that are dedicated to economic development and to health and wellness.
Okay.
So the issue that they had was that those funds that were created, the auditors actually didn't provide, express an opinion on those funds. The second item was they would like for those non-major funds to be aggregated and displayed into a single column of the town's funds financial statements. So in the letter, after reaching out to the auditors, they informed us that there are no changes that are going to be required to the 2020 audit that has already been completed, and that those two items will be addressed in the current audit for fiscal 21 that we're working on right now. That report that came from the auditors is consistent with the letter that we received. So there isn't any action that is required for the previous audit, but it will be addressed in the upcoming audit that we're currently working on right now for the previous fiscal year.
Okay. So, and this in no way is going to affect how you're going to be able to track these two items.
No,
And that's really just they're just going to be aggregated for the audit.
correct.
Okay. And you don't see any trouble with keeping track of what's presented there in relation to what you have on the books in town.
No, not at all. Pretty much how it works is so we have government-wide major funds, and there are 6 of those. So those 2 funds that the town has created, those will roll up and fall into the 6 major funds. So we can continue to track it the way that we're doing it and account for our expenditures in those funds, and then they will roll up into one of the 6 major funds.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I just asked, request of staff that just to keep me posted on how they roll these up into the major funds, meaning if they're falling under one area, if they're going to be split into 2, just so I have that background knowledge.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My read of this letter is that the non-compliances were minor and could
Yeah,
be
so
addressed
that
quickly.
was my impression, but I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Okay, any additional questions or comments or motions from the correspondence summary? Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is the fire department report. I did not receive a fire department report. Was one received by staff?
I don't believe so. Ms. Barnes, did you receive anything separately?
Did not.
Okay. Let's move on then to council committee and ward reports. We will skip Ward 1 since he's not quite in the seat. Mr. Smith is not quite in the seat. Councilmember Foe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I want to say congrats to Councilman-elect Mr. Smith. I saw him out on the campaign trail. I saw his signs everywhere, and I liked that he worked hard for it. It's a lesson that I learned from one Alan Thompson. If you're out knocking on doors, meeting the community, you have a much better chance of winning. And I was able to share some texts with Mr. Smith the other night, just saying that I believe ultimately that a collaborative council is a council that moves together better forward. I got to think about how I just said that. But I just am really excited to fill a vacant seat and get more ideas here in front of the town and staff. So congratulations, Mr. Smith. councilman-elect. And based upon this election, we sit here and we celebrate 198 people coming out. No, 188 people, I think it was. And that is a thrilling number. But I just want to remind people that Hyattsville, by introducing mail-in ballots this past year, increased their participation to over 30% of the population. Now, I know this is just one ward, but how that would look across our ward, a 30% increase, not a 30% increase, over 30% of the population would be around 2,200 people voting. And I want to continue to call that we implement legislation that allows us to implement mail-in ballots in Riverdale Park. I just would love to see us continue to push the envelope and accessing the vote in our communities. Close to finally. I just want to say specific thanks to our staff. Mr. Town Manager, your staff does an incredible job. They work hard. They're committed to our town. They continuously prove how hard they're working. And I just, from a council perspective, I always tell people we live in this world where we get to be idea people, and the hard work is actually done by town staff. So I want to say thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for doing the work that you've done, and to your entire staff. Like I think at that last meeting, we started discussing BRIC funding, and I recognize that those funds are highly competitive, but just the fact that we are getting our name out there, saying that these are projects that we are seeking, they are tangible steps that we are taking to improve stormwater management in our community. And as I have told you, it's just something that we can tell our constituents that we're working hard on accomplishing. And that is truly remarkable. One person I'd specifically like to thank this week is, and I told her this personally, is Director Barnes. Running a second election in less than 5 months, giving us your Saturday night. And John, I would never tell you how to manage your team, but I think she deserves a day off coming up pretty soon. Told you, Jess. I told you I was going to do that.
And I will simply say that I told her the same thing during many of our chats on Saturday. And then I think we actually were working on some stuff on Sunday too. And yes, but yeah, she deserves more than a day off. And Ms. Barnes does an incredible job for the residents of the town, and we're very fortunate to have her on our team.
She does. I mean, now that Councilmember-elect Smith is here, it's just working with his staff has been incredible. Like I frequently tell John, like, you don't need to contact me. This is the Labor Day holiday. I want you to enjoy your time off. Instead, I find myself in a half-hour dialogue as he's cooking dinner. It's just a commitment to this town that I'm incredibly grateful for, and it fills me with a sense of pride. Last but not least, centennial planning. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the future holds. I feel like committing significant amounts of time to an event that we don't know where we'll be in 8 or 9 months. I'm confused about what we should do next. We've already had a lot of dialogues about events that haven't yet occurred. And I'm interested in hearing dialogue from staff and council members just on what they think next moves should be. When it comes to COVID information, my number one source is our mayor. And it doesn't lead me to believe that large scale events like we're hoping to host may be attainable by this summer. I don't know. So I want you to think about that and shoot me some ideas about what you think planning should entail. I do not feel like this should be a virtual event or a Zoom event. I believe it should be an in-person event whenever we can host that. And with that, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. And for those in the audience and in virtual land who don't know what BRIC stands for, it stands for Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. It's a program of the federal government for helping fund various projects. It's not actually. we don't have an actual project devoted to purchasing hard pieces of building material that are, roughly 2 inches by 4 inches by 8 inches.
And in my
So-
discussions with the town manager, the talk has been about improving the quality of wells run to be able to hold water, flooding issues at Beale Circle, and an area in Ward 1, I think it's Oglethorpe and Lafayette, you said were a portion of what it was we were looking to receive federal funding from. I mean, it's a state application, but we're just trying to get in on that. But just to hear those things being discussed is just truly remarkable, because we're working for the best interests of our community, and that makes me incredibly proud.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all you folks out there in Zoom streaming land. The Central Kenilworth Avenue Revitalization CDC has actually already met for this month. They met the Tuesday after Labor Day. Much of the discussion was moving forward with strategic planning and the revisions to the that's the one thing that's beautiful about this area. When you get a little Norteño music to your ward report, I can work with that. I don't know if anyone heard that in the background. Just availing myself of this beautiful evening. That said, they are working to update the charter and the bylaws of the CDC, and with the help of students from who are signed on through AmeriCorps and also through the University of Maryland. They're also looking to get the final items needed for the opening of the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe. Hopefully we'll be finding out more of that in terms of an opening for that in the near future. The one thing that has come forward from the CDC is an event that is that the county, the executive director, oh, here they come again, around the block. Which was the last time we had music at our meetings. The CCAR staff is planning for a health fair October 9th, 2021. And they're looking for a decision by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the Parks Department, on the proposed location. They're looking for decision from the town for connection with Riverdale Park Police, the property management for parking at Sarvis Avenue lot across from the Sarvis Cafe. And they're looking for a review and thoughts on this event as they see that support from Park and Planning Commission, the Department of Parks, and the town are very important for this event this year and in yearly in the future. They're looking to pull together a planning group for the success of the Greater Riverdale Health Fair. Now, I appreciate the staff has responded back looking for getting more details regarding the event hours, the anticipated attendance, whether or not food is being served at the cooking demonstrations, and the requirement of masks for those working the event for the attendees. I appreciate that, and I offer this in light of the fact that another event that was looking to be planned for the 18th of September, an event titled Greater Riverdale Thrives, has been postponed. And this was due to concerns raised by the town regarding an event such as this with the attendance it could draw in light of where things stand with the pandemic. And as council council will note, and those in the public who are watching and listening to this, that is number, I believe it is number 9 on the correspondence summary. The letter from the pastor of the church who is overseeing this. Most of the folks that were working with the town were liaisons. The letter was from the Greater Riverdale Thrives. The letter was signed by, trying to get down to the bottom here. Here we go. Pastor Michael S. Dixon. One of the people that, one of the members of the steering committee consultant was Shanta Jackson, I know was working extensively with the town and Ms. Barnes. I'm glad that Greater Riverdale Thrives is looking to work with us in terms of being able to hold an event at another time that is going to be both beneficial to those residents it is trying to reach, as well as not putting them at risk of possibly catching the coronavirus. The town has worked very hard since March of 2020 to essentially construct a working structure for events in town that helps keep residents safe as much as possible. And raising the concerns that they did with Greater Riverdale Thrives, and expressing those in a very frank and earnest terms. And the fact that Pastor Dixon responded and saw what was being presented, made sense, and decided to postpone. I'd like to acknowledge that and appreciate that decision that he made. And I hope that we, as a town, are able to work with Riverdale Thrives in the future and be able to hold an event that is going to be able to be a good and safe benefit for all those who attend. With the, I'll bring in a little tennis here. The fact that the women's singles final was essentially played by 2 young ladies who were essentially born in the 21st century. Really demonstrates to us in one aspect that we are firmly in the 21st century. And another more sobering aspect that we are definitely in the 21st century are the events that the mayor alluded to earlier in terms of the rainfall we had 1 year ago. We are now looking at rain events that were considered, for lack of a better term, rare events being more regular events. And while the county is coming up with a plan for how they're going to help approach stormwater management, it is incumbent upon us as a municipality to look at how we are approaching stormwater management across the board throughout our code, and to work with county as much as we can. That is my opinion. Be that rain barrels, be that impervious surfaces, be that be it, you know, as a anecdotal example, someone looking to put on additions that is going to come over the 30% lot coverage, or looking at resurfacing a driveway. Perhaps that's resurfacing a driveway, then you're still under the 30% lot coverage requirement. we need to find ways as a community to be able to manage whatever rainfall is coming upon us so that it does not flood our properties or our neighbors' properties, in the sense that we can deal with it the best we can, because essentially for the next several decades, if not longer, we, like areas around us, but especially this area being only 49 feet above sea level at last measure, are going to be fighting an uphill battle. And I know some of these conversations are going to be, they're going to be challenging. They're going to be tough. They're going to be, there's going to be a fair amount of disagreement. But I think what all of us need to remember is that we have a greater goal to achieve. And it's very important that we do achieve it. Otherwise, what we're going to see for some of our neighbors is just substantial flooding, which can be devastating to their properties. I'll leave that at that point, and for folks to consider. And I hope that we are going to have more discussions on this, and I'm sure we will in the coming weeks ahead. The one other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll end with, and this will be my last point, is that, as I'm sure you all noticed, we have a new company that we've contracted with, Jada Trucking, to handle our waste management. I wish them well. I hope everyone does wish them well. I think they want to do a good job. And I'm hoping that with this new relationship, we are able to work with Jada in creative ways in how we approach waste management. I think one of the starts that we're seeing is the composting program that we have coming online. And I do hope that those folks who are participating in this do so wholeheartedly, are committed to to what's being asked by the Riverdale Park Green team, and helping in terms of just collecting data on how they're using the compost, because this is going to be extremely important for this body and for staff moving forward after the trial program, to see how implementing this on a town-wide basis is going to work well for all those who want to participate, and to be able to do so safely. So I really do encourage that. For those participants who have signed up, please, sometimes it might be a challenge, but please, that is very important data for all of us to be able to review and decide upon. Speaking of making a commitment, being that we're coming into the fall and folks are coming back, and that we're in a very different time, I've brought this up previously. If there is something that you think you can contribute to this town on a voluntary basis to help address issues that we are looking at and we are trying to find a solution for, please contact staff, contact your council person, contact the mayor. But please let someone know. And because there are a number of things that are coming up that are just weighty and substantial, that are important for us as a town to try and approach. If you have a specialty which would help contribute to working out to find a solution, or an approach to something, it would be immensely appreciated by all. And it's a way to just, in ways that you would be owed a debt of gratitude, pardon me, or a debt of gratitude, pardon me, towards that effort. So please do keep that in mind. Because there are a lot of things that we're looking at. I realized that today was about 6 years ago that we were looking at groundbreaking on Waggertail Park. And now I believe that was about a year, 9 months to build. So roughly say ballpark 5 years. And we're at a point now that we're trying to address issues with Waggertail Park in order to improve it and make it a better experience for all. Someone out there has a way they can offer and can contribute to that dialogue, please. And that's just one example. The ones I brought up before regarding stormwater management and other things, waste management, any of those things, energy conservation, please do consider. And with that, I will conclude my report. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Siddiq, Ward 4.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Siddiq. Councilmember Mejia appears to still be absent, so we'll move to Councilmember Mayers, Ward 6.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and those viewing at home. I don't have a ward report at this time, and I do want to wish Council-elect Mr. Smith congratulations.
Thank you, Councilmember Mayers. Okay, that brings us to public comments on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. For those in the public, we ask that you hold any comments on on agenda items until we get to them, because you'll be allowed an opportunity to speak at that time. So are there any public comments? Hearing none, we can move to the consent agenda. This is an item that is not debated or discussed. It's simply a motion to pass or not pass. So may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Oh, second,
Who was the motion?
not
I was
I.
I was Mr. Mayor. I was gonna say Your Honor.
It was Council. I'm sorry. I'm at the squares are. Was that
Foe.
Councilmember Foe?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Just didn't see. Councilmember Foe, second by Councilmember Lingua. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua, Councilmember Lingua,
Sorry, on mute. Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you. This brings us to legislative action items. Item 1, a motion regarding street closure request for 6200 block of 43rd Street on September 18th, 2021 from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. for an annual block party. This is a Ward 1 event. We don't have a Ward 1 representative. Would someone care to make a motion on behalf of the residents of Ward 1 who is not the Ward 1 representative?
Okay, motion for a street closure for the, pardon me, I'm still trying to pull this up. Motion for the street closure request, 6200 block of 43rd Street on September 18th, 2021, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. for annual block party.
Thank you. That's a motion to approve, I presume? Approve the
Yeah,
request? Okay.
yeah.
Is there a second to the
Nothing
motion?
clear.
Second.
Second.
Again, the little square is lighting up. Was that Councilmember Foe was the second or Councilmember Siddiq? I couldn't see.
I think it was Councilmember Siddiq.
Okay,
My
second
ears
by
are
Siddiq.
correct.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Siddiq. Could we have a staff report at this time?
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. This is a request that we receive annually. The only exception was last year. It's a private event. It's a community block party. The block is actually half in the city of Hyattsville, half in the town of Riverdale Park. The city of Hyattsville requires, I believe, 50% of signatures from the residents on the block to approve a street closure. They have already approved the street closure. They're waiting for a response from the town with regard to our position on the street closure request.
Thank you. And the memo regarding this item suggests 3 items, and 1 item came up at the work session regarding COVID safety for the most part guidelines. Actually, all 4 are within that, and so I believe that can be considered based on the conversation at the work session as part of this motion to approve that the event organizers will be encouraged. And the town will be providing 50 reusable face masks to support the safety effort. And the 4 pieces of suggestions or guidance from CDC and the state of Maryland and the Prince Governor and the Prince George's County Executive to follow all appropriate health guidelines, to maintain social distance and wash their hands, and to wear masks even while outdoors. And the last item is requesting that should any tents be used, that they not be closed wall tents to allow ventilation to make it a safer event. So are there any council questions about this event and the motion to approve the street closure? Are there any public? Councilmember Lingua, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you very much. Yes, granted, I did make the motion to approve this street closure. So I do so with some substantial reservations, being that we had asked the Greater Riverdale Thrives to postpone an event that's not, well, in the same type of characteristics as that event. Yes, this is a private event. Yes, this is not so much a town sponsored event. This is among residents who want to get together. I do hope that they do earnestly and wholeheartly consider and take to heart the 3 recommendations made for this event. I'd like to see them all have a great event. Yeah, I'd like to also, see them come out and nobody comes out of it and tests positive or worse, gets sick. This is the other comment I'll make. I find it really unfortunate that there wasn't a communication between the city of Hyattsville when they were considering this to the town and having a discussion about this in relation to how this pandemic has played out over these summer months. I don't know what it is that we can do as a municipality to work better with them. But I was a little disappointed, and I'm not finding fault with staff here. And I know that staff, if something like this was going to be coming up, would reach out to Hyattsville. I just find it unfortunate that there wasn't an earlier reach out by the city of Hyattsville towards us when they first were aware of this request or when they first received the petition. That's all I have.
Well, I will be more than happy to reach out to Mayor Kevin Ward and express our concern and request more careful coordination in future years.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I have parallel outreach happening now with my counterpart. And so we'll work on that for future years for sure.
Okay, very good. Are there additional council comments on this motion to approve the street closure request? Are there any public comments? I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Foe, you're on mute. I will come back to Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe, do you have a, are you there? Do you have a vote? You may be having technical difficulties. I know that on occasion I've been cut off for a few seconds. There he is.
I wasn't having technical difficulties. I was having child issues. I apologize.
He was having
Okay.
laddie difficulties with the wee one.
Yeah, I
And-
apologize. No,
So,
aye.
yeah, thank you. And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you all. Let's go on to introduction of ordinance 2021-OR-08 regarding amendment to the fiscal year 2022 budget related to the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds. There is a memo. There is a little bit of background. Because this is simply an introduction, we typically just introduce it, but of course there is a brief summary presented by the person introducing it. So would a council member like to introduce ordinance 2021-OR-08?
Come on, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to do that. So here we go. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce ordinance 2021-OR-08 to amend the FY 2022 approved financial plan and budget. The amendment is to account for the receipt of the American Rescue Plan Act grant and to allocate a portion of the grant for anticipated expenditures.
Okay, so we're just amending the budget to make sure we take into account this new source of revenue.
Yeah, and also, if I may also, it's also going to applies to the town's, essentially what we're looking to do is to appropriate those grant funds to the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund and other areas that it would relate to the town's 2022 operating and capital budgets.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction, and we will discuss it with constituents and at the work session, and hopefully vote it into law at the October meeting. Next item on the agenda is a motion to approve the description of the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund. I think it might be a good idea to have a staff report before the motion. So can we have such a report?
Yes, Mr. Jones, do you want to cover that?
Yes. So Economic Recovery Strategy Fund. This is similar to what I was speaking about earlier, how we have the major funds and we would be establishing an additional fund. The Economic Recovery Strategy Fund is a fund that we would establish, and it would be for the American Rescue Plan Act funds. As it states here, these funds will be used to improve quality of life for Riverdale Park residents, provide for immediate community recovery needs, and create a long-term investment for Riverdale Park's future. Funds will be allocated primarily on programs that have a finite end, as well as long-term capital investments that meet the ARPA spending purposes.
And Mr. Jones, if I can ask for a little further explanation, this will be I don't know if you call it a sub-fund or it's going to be an account within the Economic Development Fund.
Correct, yes. Mhm.
But then this allows us to track these expenditures separately, though.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And we've actually already established a separate QuickBooks fund that will be specifically for the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund with its own separate chart of accounts, so that we'll be able to track the specific expenditures and the requirements for reporting the use of those funds back to the state.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any questions for staff, then please ask them, or if someone is ready to approve the description of the Economic Recovery Strategy Fund, please make a motion.
So moved.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Sadiq.
Second.
Oh, no, you don't, laddie. I'm seconding that.
All
Okay,
right.
so
I'll take. I mean, I did beat you to the punch. So
I
So-
beat you to the punch on the move, save for Mr. Sadiq. So, but let's not bicker and argue. This is
Okay,
supposed to be an
motion-
officious occasion.
motion by Councilmember Sadiq, seconded by Councilmember Lingua, unless someone objects.
I did
Okay.
not make that motion.
Oh,
Thought you did.
that was me.
okay, Councilmember
I
Foe made
stand
the motion.
corrected.
Councilmember Lingua made the second. Thank you for the correction, Councilmember Sadiq. It looks like I need to expand my Zoom window or something so I can see who's speaking, because you all are little postage stamps right now. So we have a motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there discussion of this motion? Are there any public comments on this motion? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you all. Let's go on to legislative action item number 4, motion to authorize creation of an ARPA project manager, a full-time but term position. We have a staff report on this and advance the motion also.
Yes, I'll give a overview in Mr. Smith's absence, and then any specific questions, Ryan's here, because the position will report to them jointly. So in order to manage the programs and these funds and ensure compliance with the various regulations, it's our recommendation that we create a position and hire this term position. You see variations of this happening in municipalities across the country. Many of our neighbors are seeking similar positions to fill. And so we want to concentrate on the administration of the programs, the development of the programs, and we're looking for someone with grant management experience and program development experience and things of that nature.
Okay, so I hope that everyone had a chance to read through the position description. Are there any comments, or are we ready to go ahead and have a motion to authorize the creation of this full-time but term position?
I have a question.
Yes.
It seems like all the towns in the area are going through this at the same time. Is this a position that should be shared amongst towns, or do we really need one full-time all the time?
I believe that, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Please go ahead. I
I-
think you'll
I-
say the same thing I'm going to.
I can say that with nearly 6.5 million and the number of programs that we currently have already stretched our very small staff team to the limits. And so, as the mayor will tell you, I'm sure, I never seek to add a position unless there's more than enough work for it and that it's funded. And I believe that this will be at least 40 hours a week. And so yes, and I think the other jurisdictions are looking the same. The smaller jurisdictions, smaller than us, they may be looking for someone part-time if they're dealing with a much smaller sum of funds. But we really see this as a full-time position, sir.
And so with so many other jurisdictions, is there really that big a pool of qualified candidates out there?
Well, that's a good question. So we are making the position hybrid. We're offering benefits with the position. As you'll see on the position description, we're saying, I believe it's from the mid 70s to the low 80s. Tacoma Park, for example, is willing to pay 110 to 130. Hyattsville, though, is looking to have someone who is contractual, a 1099 employee with no benefits, and they're willing to pay, I believe it's between 24 and 27 an hour. So I think the way folks are approaching it, you're going to get different folks with different levels of experience. We examined our organization, looked at our skill set, looked at our needs. And so what we're presenting tonight is unique to us. And I'm not sure what College Park's doing, but I know Tacoma Park and Hyattsville are running recruitments currently for the detail that I just shared.
Thank you.
Additional council comments or questions,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
please?
Mr. Town Manager, the exempt status in the position description, you're comfortable with that?
I am. While they're not going to have someone reporting directly to them, we believe they passed the Department of Labor test for administrative, and because we're looking for someone with to make some independent decisions at this level. And
Okay.
Mr. Smith looked at this position description and walked through the Department of Labor test, and he believes that it is exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Additional council questions or comments? So I had one question just for clarification, see whether we needed a language change, which was the supervision exercise at the very end of the description. It says, very end of the whole description, says direct supervision of staff is not a function assigned to this position. I know that the intent there is to say direct supervision of town staff is not, but would there be supervision of contractors?
That's very possible, sir. And I think we would take that as a friendly edit, if that's the term. It's something we can add for sure.
I don't think we have a motion yet. So, do you have a suggested language for that? Just adding town staff?
Yeah, I think that's fine, sir.
Okay. Okay, well, perhaps the person making the motion can direct that edit be added. Are there any public comments before we have a motion? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the authorization of a position and approval of position description of the ARPA project manager for the creation of a new full-time term position, American Rescue Plan Act project manager, and to approve the related position description subject to the edit clarifying supervision as related to contractors.
So the edit of adding the word town before staff in the supervision exercise section.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
That was Councilmember Siddiq. No.
Councilmember Foe.
Okay, you guys are,
Mr.
Gonna
Mayor, I
change
think
my
it might be,
voice, I guess.
okay, motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. You know, it's pretty easy when we're actually in the council chambers to know who's doing it, but it's harder on this, in this environment. I'm having a hard time this evening for some reason.
gotta be the headphones. It's gotta be the
That,
headphones.
that could be the issue. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion now that we actually have a motion and second and the item is on the floor from the council? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. So we combined items 4 and 5 into a single motion, looks like. Is that correct? So let's move on to unfinished business.
Point of order,
Um,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Just to make sure we confirm, it might be correct that that's how we did it, but is that did my lumping it together, is that still a correct way of approaching it?
I don't see any reason why not. Town
Okay.
Manager Listician, do you have an issue? Mr. Town Manager, are you there? Town Manager messaged me that he had to step away for a few moments.
Okay.
I would, given the issue, I would recommend that we.
He's back.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, do you have any concern about the fact that items 4 and 5, legislative action items 4 and 5 were combined into a single motion?
I do not from any legal perspective or anything, sir. I think that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then let's move on to unfinished business. Are there any items of unfinished business? Okay, let's move on to new business. Item number 1, recommendations regarding Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission fiscal year 2023 budget. Shall we have a presentation from staff on the memo regarding this item?
Ms. Barnes?
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. This item was discussed at the August 30th work session. In previous years, Prince George's County Planning Board of Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission has held virtual public forums to solicit comments for the upcoming fiscal year. Staff are still working to confirm the dates of the virtual public forums. The written comments from 2020 are attached for the council's review.
Thank you. This is an item of new business, so discussion is pretty free form on this. So I hope people have had a chance to look at it. Are there any additions, deletions, rewordings, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
regarding some of the requests for Riverside Neighborhood Park, because it is one I'm familiar with, I had a discussion the other day with Town Clerk Ms. Barnes regarding some of the playground equipment. Now there's a newer set of playground equipment that came in after the old set had a tree fell on it, and that still seems to be in fairly good repair. The other small island where they have playground equipment for smaller kids is starting to definitely show its age. And my thought is if, because it does never hurt to ask, if a request be made for replacement of that equipment as well. To do so, I mean, it does still have a few more years on it. But I think getting it on their radar now would be important. As well, I think one other thing that we would like to reach out to, and I don't know, and I'm open to ideas on this from staff. I know this is about more of a new, new additions request. Though we are now into our, I think, 4th or 5th year, where the restrooms there are closed and they're essentially relying on a single porta-john for the entire park. And I have seen on a fairly regular basis, from the view I have, that folks will go up there, they'll look, they open the door, peer in, have second thoughts, and then they decide to go elsewhere around the park. And I think it's important that Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission consider upgrades or improvements or some approach that allows these restrooms to be open and in such a way that would alleviate their concerns about future vandalism. Because I know that's the reason why they were closed in the first place. Essentially, they went through, I think, a year's budget, maintenance budget on this one summer. And while I understand that's unfortunate, we're now in year 5 where we just don't have use of this, of these restrooms. And I do not think that's fair to the park goers.
Okay, so that's the addition of 2 items under capital improvements.
Yeah,
both
well,
in-
definitely the playground equipment, though. I'm wondering, and I'm open to the input from council and how they feel about this, and from staff. Is this something, addressing, the issue about the restrooms there? Is that something do we want to put in this letter, or do we want to take a separate approach? This isn't really so much technically a new request. It's just asking that a service be restored in the original way that the park was approaching this.
I view this as probably being an appropriate request under this sort of hearing that they're having, because there are undoubtedly some capital upgrades that are required in order for them to be comfortable reopening the restrooms.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what those might be, but that sounds like something we can request.
Okay.
If there's no objection from other members of the council, then I don't see an issue with bringing it in there. Do the half basketball court and the volleyball court, those are still needed in your opinion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Especially, equally so for both. The basketball court has become very popular.
Councilman,
Yes.
I like, as a basketball player growing up, I like, why go half court? Let's go full court.
Part of it is,
I don't know that it's space. I mean, we have I think our park space is ample for those kind of amenities.
not so much down here. A half court would be more so for younger kids to be able to get on and be able to play.
Okay.
And that's, from what I've heard from folks over here, half court would be plenty. I understand where you're coming from.
Prince George's County, man. Like, this is the mecca of basketball.
Yeah, and Kevin Durant wants to come in and put a nice, good court that's, still works with a
I'll,
drill. and
I'll
it's-
email him, see if anything
and
can happen.
be pervious and all and work like that because mind you now, Councilman, the Riverside Neighborhood Park, while it is a park, it is also a de facto floodplain. And we need to keep that function in mind as we consider applying impervious surface. Like I said, if Mr. Durant, a proud son of Prince George's County, through his programs, we can find monies to put in a full court that would provide a surface that would drain off, and that would be great. But I think otherwise, putting in a half court probably be the extent that we would want to go. I was going to say also in terms of like with volleyball, I'm seeing much more in this past year in the way of volleyball. And one of the things that I'm seeing that the volleyball players are doing, as opposed to sticking to the 1 or 2 spots where they were playing volleyball, they are now expanding around and playing in other areas, which includes the infield on the softball field. So I think getting some 1 or possibly 2, essentially volleyball courts set up that are pervious in nature, that can take repeated use, and is not creating worn spots and cavities for grass to grow back in, and thus creating uneven surfaces within the park. I think that would be beneficial for park goers.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that that they were the same.
Yes.
Okay, the one item that I would consider possibly rewording as the first item, the expenditures in support of flood control. And given Mr. Town Manager, the county has funding in place for the main parts of that stormwater infrastructure. Is that correct? Are you prepared to talk about that at this time?
The, for which infrastructure at the park?
Yes.
I don't know. I know they have 3.4 million allocated to the Wells Run project. I don't know if this would be included in that. I think we'd have to check with the county.
Okay, I mean, my understanding is that that project is budgeted to include some naturalization of the channel, but this is an expansion of that.
Yes, and it very well may be, but we'll have them here hopefully in 2 weeks, sir. And I can reach out to them in between and get some clarity on that.
Okay, because I don't know that that MNC PPC is going to be excited about expending large sums of money to do this, but I think requesting that they support and provide necessary funding to facilitate other investments of other dollars might be something they could do. So why don't we try to, hopefully we can have a little flexibility in any language approved by the council this evening to include that possibility.
Okay.
Councilmember Foe, I see your hand is up.
One of the rare occurrences where I raised my hand. This has been a pet project of mine for a while. I've talked about it publicly, but I think specifically in a pandemic and you see the use of our public space, it's truly remarkable. And I love to talk about community, and I find that in our parks. So we took hoops down at the beginning of the pandemic, and Mara and I would walk over there and we would see young men playing dodgeball. We see women's league softball. But again, we have tremendous space and it's underutilized. It is not programmed, it is not activated. It is, I frequently reference Riverdale Park as a sleeping giant. If you look at the location specifically of on the map, it calls it the Riverdale Recreation Area, where Waggertail Dog Park is, connected by a trail to Ward 3, where you have Riverside Drive Park. These are accessible by trail. These will be accessible by Purple Line transport. These are accessible for the College Park community to access as well. I say we're a sleeping giant because I feel like we can push amenities and then help assist creating programming to utilize them. So I think of potential futsal courts, multiple small indoor soccer, which would for our large and growing Hispanic community would be tremendously utilized. Now let's create programs with Prince George's County Public Schools to utilize them in the summer. We have things like that in Fairfax County. There is Gridiron and Great Books, where we're attaching literacy to athletic participation. Like I've had friends push this concept of adult sports. Prince George's County does not have significant adult sports that we could push in our parks, bringing people into our neighborhoods. So I look at what we're asking for, and I recognize it as a lot. Futsal, bocce ball, paddle tennis, others. I just think we need to bring specific players to the table. I didn't come up with futsal on my own. That was a suggestion of Councilwoman Glaros. I believe that if we can bring these teams together and help utilize our community, I feel like there is a push to utilize that space more for us. There's nothing there that draws me individually to those parks on a daily basis. I would love to see more amenities. So like I think about the current basketball situation in Riverside or in Riverdale Recreation Area. There's one court and there's space beside it. There should be an additional court where we can bring people in to celebrate our incredible space that we have here in this community. So I want to get louder about this. I want to bring more people on the table. I feel like we can activate.
Well, can I make a suggestion then?
Yes.
That we should ask for a strategic planning for, strategic review and planning of current uses and possible future uses of the park space to identify ways to to more efficiently use it.
Yeah, no,
I don't have the.
I feel like I can bring residents to the table for a dialogue like that.
Mhm. I saw Councilmember Sadiq was nodding that he thought that was a good idea. So so can staff generate some language to go with that? Thumbs up from Town Manager Lestitian. I see a hand up from Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. To the point being raised about adult sports, and I will going with what I see at Riverside Neighborhood Park. Softball, primarily an adult sport being played. Some kids, yes, but it's primarily adults. Small soccer, futsal, as Councilman refers to. I see folks come out nightly with their nets, setting up and playing. Sometimes it's 7-on-7, sometimes it's almost looks like 11-on-11. There are a lot of bodies out there. And again, mostly adults, some teens, but mostly adults. On the far soccer field, that according to Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission's Department of Parks and Recreation, is closed for renovations. On weekdays, I will see folks out either playing small game or practicing skills. And then on the weekends, I'm seeing what's just short of a league game with two teams in distinct uniforms and a referee, yet no net installed on the goals. Be that on Sundays. I've seen that. Again, adult participation. As I'd mentioned, volleyball, that's adult participation. I.e., I think you're getting the point. We're seeing that now. At least I know I'm seeing that down here. I think it'd be great if we can find other ways to get this more organized. I think it would be great for us to be able to pin down with from Department of Parks and Recreation the status of the large field and the renovation, quote unquote, it's undergoing right now that no one seems to be paying attention to in terms of the signage prohibiting play and the rather light enforcement of that prohibition from their Department of Police. I think that in doing, if we're able to, in terms of just what could drive and organize things, as Councilmember brings up, would possibly be looking into a conversation with Park and Planning Commission to expand permitting priority, not only at Riverside Neighborhood Park, but also the Riverdale Community Park up there in the what I refer to as the former northwest corner of Ward 1, where our type the
think we may have lost him.
No, I'm here. Something went on. I don't know what was going on there, and I don't know where I was last at. I'll just wrap it up by saying I think that's a sign. That is the sign to wrap up. I think that if we look at Park and Planning Commission, ask them about establishing permitting priority at some of these other parks and for some of the fields at those parks. I know we can't get full, permitting priority over at the Riverdale Community Park for all the fields there, but perhaps maybe for a few would be helpful. And I think that would go a long way towards residents in town if they wanted to try and organize something where, be it some type of adult activity where they know they could get a hold of a field, I think it would be worth it, I know if I knew that this large field at Riverside Neighborhood Park was allowed to be permitted, I'd probably be setting something up for some weekday evening ultimate, to which I would turn my esteemed colleague from Ward 2 into a fairly decent handler. So, but that's up to him.
Not running that much, David. I told you those days are over.
Handlers don't run that much, but we digress. But in terms of just like being able to have something more, the point being able to have something more for folks who want to be able to organize something in town, be able to secure a field and go from there. So that's my point.
Okay. Do you have any objection to including a request for a review of existing programs and strategic plan for parks within the?
No, not at all. I don't have any objections at that. No, not at all.
Okay. Okay. Very good. I was looking at the calendar for previous years, and this often happened around the September-October boundary, so late September, early October.
Yeah.
I suspect
third or fourth Tuesday, I believe it is, or third or fourth Monday. And
right. So the question is whether we need to take specific action this evening, or whether you would like to, someone would like to make a motion to authorize me to work with town staff to generate a letter and present it to the MNC PPC planning board sitting as the MNC PPC board, or how we want to move forward on this item.
I think that sounds good, Mr. Mayor.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Councilman.
No, go ahead.
I think that sounds good. I feel like you are very good at communicating with everyone and summarizing our thoughts. And I believe that would be easier than convening another meeting or waiting until a time period that is too late. So I would make that motion if council would like.
I agree.
Okay, so the motion, I'll just make it up on the fly. Motion to authorize the mayor to work with town staff to generate a letter representing town priorities in the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Park budget for future fiscal years. Sound good?
So moved. Or shall I say seconded? The duly
I'll
Councilmember
take-
Foe had the top.
I will assume the smile on Councilmember Foe's face is a motion. He is giving me the thumbs up, and I'll take yours as a second, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you.
So any additional discussion of this item? Any public comments? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 401, and I have a new job to work on over the next several weeks. Okay, next item on the agenda under new business, mandatory staff COVID-19 vaccination program. Mr. Town Manager, please let us know the status of this, the history of this.
Yes, so as I lay out in the memo to you all this evening, the town has been impacted by COVID, obviously, to include some town staff and their families. And we know that the elected body and our residents have been impacted by the pandemic. And we have taken as many safety precautions as we could to date. And all of our original protocols are still in place. And despite those best efforts, I mentioned that COVID has pierced that shield, if you will. And so with the approval of the Pfizer vaccine and the full FDA approval, and with the anticipated approval of the Moderna vaccine, full FDA approval, hopefully in a matter of weeks or perhaps 2 months, depending on which news accounts you follow. But there's been a lot more conversation on mandatory vaccines in the workplace. And as careful as we've been with our protocols, and I cite in the memo how the town even added on to our new HVAC equipment, a UVC system. We've installed a upper air UVC system in the train station as well. So the town has really taken many steps to protect the residents and the town staff. And I believe that it's now time for the town to move to a mandatory vaccine program. We have encouraged all of our staff to be vaccinated. We've assisted early on in the pandemic, coordinating opportunities for staff to be vaccinated. We have not tracked vaccinations in terms of mandatory reporting. But what I am suggesting to the council tonight is that we have such a program that requires reporting. We are able to segregate that information and have it stored separately and securely. And that this is necessary to protect our residents, our staff team, and by extension, their families and everyone they come in contact with. I've had discussions with members of the staff leadership team, and we're all generally supportive of this. And I've spoken with the town attorney, Mr. Fred Sussman, and he recommends that we make some minor tweaks to the language in the current personnel manual that the mayor and council approved a number of years ago that would make vaccinations mandatory. And this is all for the health and safety of our residents and our staff. And I do want to point out, and I mentioned it in the memo, but I cannot highlight this enough. As a small organization, when one person is out of the office, it has an impact on us. Two people out of the office, it really has an impact on us. If we really had an outbreak of COVID, we would be scrambling to provide basic services. That's simply fact. Being such a small organization, if we lost a few people in public works, we would be turning to our neighbors, hoping that they could provide services for our residents. The same with police services. And I did include a table in the memo, and I'd like to highlight that if Ryan can adjust it to take us to that table. And I mentioned in the memo that there's no organization that, at least I'm familiar with, that tracks public safety or public sector deaths generally as a result of COVID. So there's not statistics for code enforcement, if you will, or neighborhood services staff, or for public works employees. But there is an organization that tracks COVID-related deaths, and these are the deaths attributed to line of duty COVID deaths, not all COVID deaths, but for law enforcement that have died from COVID that has been traced back to their jobs. And when we look at the number of law enforcement who were killed in the line of duty in 2019, it was 151. 2020, 371. 242 of those caused by COVID. So far this year, and these are numbers from the other day, so unfortunately they may have increased. But 260 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty so far this year. 148 attributed to COVID. And in looking at these numbers and understanding the risk that's involved for all of our staff when we put them in situations to interact with others, and the risk to the others with whom we are interacting. I believe that now's the time for the town to take this next step. It's something that, Mr. Mayor, you and I talked about this a number of months ago. And I wanted to take a look and see what the federal government was doing, what other larger governments were doing. I didn't want to be the first. And now we won't be. And I didn't want to be the first because the first being a small entity, it may have drawn more litigation. I think so far the courts are being supportive, and the legal experts are weighing in and saying that employers can do this. And the EEOC has put out guidance, and they've updated their guidance over the last few months. And So what I'm looking for this evening, in addition to answering whatever questions or concerns that the council may have now, is just a general idea of whether or not this is something that the council is open to. And if so, then I list, I believe it's 4 things. Ryan, can you adjust the screen? That we will do, and that is that we will host some meetings to listen to staff that may have concerns. And I do want to point out that for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I have a standing meeting all staff are invited to every Monday. And I've been talking about this at every one of those meetings, telling people, you all have my cell number, you all have my email. If you have concerns, you can bring them up here, or you can call me, you can talk to your department head. And to date, we've not received any calls or emails or text or concerns expressed from the staff team. But I do think additional outreach to the staff team is important. And then we would work with Mr. Sussman on what the exact revisions to the personnel manual would be. And that we would come back in 2 weeks and present to the mayor and council what those edits would be. And then finally, and then at the 27th, we would ask for direction to prepare the required documents to make those amendments. I have in the memo that I am not envisioning an opt-out clause and having testing. From what I've read and have seen, I think it establishes a false equivalency that the testing is one thing, but the vaccine is to protect the individual and others. And the testing will only get us halfway there. And that it would also be a fit for duty requirement, which means it's mandatory to continue employment. And so with that, sir, I'll be happy to take any questions or listen to concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I will add one interesting, I hope, piece of information, which is that as I think many members of the council know, I meet regularly with other mayors from within the county. And at the last meeting, we had about 10 or 12 mayors, and 2 of them mentioned their strong mayor form of government, that they had already months ago implemented mandatory vaccination policies in their communities. And so this is not a brand new thing. This is something that's been going on within the county so far. So with that, members of the council, what are your thoughts?
Can't do it soon enough.
Thank you,
Get the ball
Councilmember
rolling.
Siddiq.
Get the
100%
ball
on board.
rolling.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingba. Councilmember Foe.
100% on board. I wish my employer, Fairfax County, would do the same exact thing. I think the point that the town manager makes about a small staff that is also working within our community, we don't want to be the cause of our town government shutting down or our town staff shutting down or spreading throughout the community. So I am 100% in support of this.
Okay, Councilmember Mayers.
I am also 100% on this, because everybody needs to be need to protect themselves and other people also. So it needs to be mandatory.
Okay. Public comments, and since you'll probably get to vote on this, Councilmember Smith, I'd love to hear your opinion as part of the public comments.
Thanks. I was just about to ask to make one, so that's serendipitous. I am 100% in support of this as well. However, I would flag, and I'm sure that Mr. Listician is already on this, but just for due diligence, that we need to make sure that there are exceptions for staff who may have legitimate immunodeficiency issues and can't receive vaccines. And I would hard underline legitimate, because seeing the news from other places, there are some folks trying to work the system. Not that I think any of our staff would do that, but there are rare legitimate cases where somebody might not be able to be vaccinated, and we wouldn't want to push them out of employment for that reason.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
I've
sir.
actually, I know someone who had a severe reaction to first dose of a 2-dose vaccine and was advised by her doctor to not take the second dose. And so I'm sure that we will have exemptions in situations such as that.
Yes, and that's mentioned in the memorandum this evening, sir, that we'll have to follow the EEOC guidance, and that allows for both a religious exemption and a health exemption.
Okay, very good. Are there additional public comments? Okay, do you have enough guidance there, Mr. Town Manager? It sounds like there's some pretty strong support for this on the council.
I do, and we will begin work on this. And the first thing, setting up some meetings specific to the topic, not just added to an agenda, so we can hear from the staff team if there's any concerns.
Okay, and I'm, as I believe Councilmember Foe mentioned, this has been something that I've spent a lot of time researching, the sort of technical aspects of the both the vaccines and the infection, and I'm happy to provide any technical issues that the staff might bring up that they want answered.
I sincerely appreciate that offer, sir. I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow night.
Very good. Any additional public comments or council comments? Okay, let's move on to the last anticipated item under new business, living canopies. There's a presentation at the Green Team meeting last week from about possible living bus stops. And is there a staff presentation on this, or?
Yes, I can give an update, sir.
Thank you.
So following the meeting with the Green Team last week, I had a significantly detailed conversation with Mr. Tilley, who was the presenter. And he's the CEO of Living Canopies Limited. It is a separate private nonprofit company. I did learn that the University of Maryland is 3% owner in that company. And we talked in great detail about where the project actually is. And the concept for a more substantial bus shelter is just that at this point. It's a concept. There has been no design work completed. So I talked with them at length about that, the concerns that the town would have in creating a public facility, and the difference between a private entity having some sort of a canopy and a municipal government putting a shelter out for members of the public, and the liability attached to that. Not just the wind load was mentioned at the meeting, but snow load on the roof, and liability, and engineering and specifications and all that, and all those questions that would have to be answered before I would be able to recommend to the council that a particular project move forward. With that being said, we also talked about what he actually needs right now. And what he needs is a letter of interest / support. I'd call it more a letter of support for a grant. And I asked him if a letter of support that says that this concept aligns with the town's goals of greater sustainability, and that we find this to be an intriguing concept, and pending final engineering and cost, it's something that the town may be open to. If that type of a general statement would suffice. He said it would. And he actually reached out to me just about 3 hours ago, asking if I had any update. And I said, I'll contact him in the morning. So I think we can, if the council is so inclined, offer that type of a letter of support. It's not very different from what we do with a colleague of his, Mr. Andy Fellows, when he's applying for grants for various projects that align with the town's various vision and commitment statements, that the town can support a general idea without obligating to participate in anything future, not obligating money or staff time. And I think that's really where Mr. Tilley is in this process. I will say that I've been Googling a little bit since then, looking at bus shelters with green roofs. And they appear to be not common, but there are some out there. And so we have a current project in the CIP where we want to add bus shelters. And so we're actually going to take a look and see if there's some products already out there that could meet this type of a goal, but not something that we would have to wait on engineering, design, and then production, all that following a grant application process. So something we may be able to implement more quickly, at least in some locations. So with that, if anyone has any questions.
Are there council questions for the town manager, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'm comfortable with giving him support. Granted, there are a few more things that need to get worked out. But I think it's something that's going in the right direction. And, you know, if you don't try, you'll never know.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think it's a very interesting idea. And I think it's a good idea here is not to look to replace existing shelters, but to add to non-existing shelters where their places are just a pole right now. To replace that with a living canopy umbrella would I think improve things no matter what. As well as perhaps in the area we do the farmers market, which isn't a bus stop per se, but it's heavily trafficked, and it would be attractive as well as give, especially in the summertime, shade to people who are at the farmers market.
Yeah. I could see that. And I could also see, you know, other places in town. I know the gentleman talked about the Route 1 corridor. Yeah, that would be nice. But I think there are other places in town where folks catch a bus that could use something like this.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion authorizing the town manager to send a letter of interest as he outlined to provide as a supporting document for the grant request for the living canopies?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to craft a letter of support within the within the construct that he presented tonight.
Seconded. No, have it.
Okay, I think that was Lingua making the motion and Sadiq the second. Is that right? Okay, I'm good. Is there any further discussion of this motion? Are there any public comments? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Are there any other items of new business?
I have none.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Siddiq. This motion is not debated. All those in favor, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. We are adjourned. The motion passes 401. We are adjourned at 9:22 p.m. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you to all members of the public. Thank you to staff. See you all soon.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Have
Thank you
a
very
great
much.
week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Smith.